What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Word on Woodward presented by Rehmann. Empower your purpose with Rehmann. You can catch us right here every Tuesday and Thursday starting at 4 p.m. Wherever you're watching, make sure you're liking, subscribing, and turning on your live notifications so you don't miss a single second of the Word on Woodward. Also, to get your thoughts on the show, we've got a new hashtag that you can use. It's hashtag Word on Woodward, and we'll get to your thoughts in the show. Again, you can use that on any platform that you're watching on. You can use it on Twitter as well. So if you have a question, a comment, a thought, make sure you use that hashtag, the Word on Woodward. We've got some great interviews for you guys, as always. Dan Dickerson will be joining us shortly. We've got interviews with Ellen Zarang, who is head of marketing for the Tigers. And then we've got Ken Kale, Tigers shortstop, Nico Goodrum, Ray Doswell of the Negro League Baseball Museum ahead of the Tigers annual Negro League celebration this weekend. It's going to be a great show, everybody. So without further ado, we're going to bring in Art Regner. Art, how's everything going today?
It's going well, Daniella. Looking forward to it. I mean, it has been a sports lover's a dream, if you really think about it, with all the hockey and the NBA going, and of course, Tiger baseball. So it's going pretty well.
It has been, Art. The NHL has been exciting. The Tigers are still looking pretty good last night. We'll talk about that game for our first topic of today's Big Three. Wasn't the best game. Obviously, the Tigers did suffer a loss, but let's take a look at some of the highlights to see what happened in that game. Matt Boyd on the mound for the Tigers ran into trouble right away in his third start of the season. Tim Anderson at the plate to lead this one off, and he goes deep to left for this solo shot, giving the White Sox a very early 1-0 lead. Tim Anderson had quite the day, going 4 for 5 with this shot, a triple, and he also added on 2 doubles. The next batter up, Elroy Jimenez, and he's going to do it again for Chicago. He goes deep here, opposite field to right, and that makes it a quick 2-0 Chicago. Now we'll go to the bottom of the first. We talked Tuesday about Jonathan Schoop's success against the White Sox, and he puts that on display here, sending one really deep at Comerica Park, all the way back to the bushes for a solo shot and his 4th home run of the season. 433 feet on that one. Schoop closes that gap. The Tigers are now down by 1. We jump to the bottom of the 4th. White Sox up 3-1. Catcher Grayson Greiner puts this one into deep center, all the way to the warning tracks. 2 runs would score, and Grayson Greiner gets a 2 RBI double. Next up is Willie Castro, first game as a Tiger after getting the call up with CJ Cron placed on the 10-day IL, and he did not disappoint. This ball is sent deep to right field and out of here for the 2-run shot. The Tigers take a 5-3 lead. Castro went 3 for 4 in his season debut. Now the top of the 5th, Matt Boyd still on the mound for Detroit. Bases loaded, 2 outs, and it's Luis Robert clearing the deck with a 3 RBI double off the wall in the gap. A tough inning for Matthew Boyd, and you can see how close that ball was to being out of here. It is now 6-5 in favor of the White Sox. Next batter up, Nomar Mazara. Robert is on second. Mazara hits a deep shot to center. Robert's going to score here, giving the White Sox a 7-5 lead, and that would be the end of Matt Boyd's day. We'll go to the top of the 9th now. Gregory Soto on the mound, trying to keep this one within reach for the Tigers. He gives up a 2-out walk here to former Tiger James McCann to put 2 runners on. And again, it's Luis Robert that is at the plate, but watch this pitch. Soto is going to get him swinging on the hard slider in. Unfortunately, the Tigers would go 1-2-3 in the bottom of the 9th and fall to the White Sox 7-5. Matt Boyd struggled with 7 runs on 7 hits, but the Tigers bullpen remained outstanding, allowing no runs and striking out 8 in just 4 1/3 inning. The tough loss for the Tigers. This really will be a tough one to swallow, Art, but what are your takeaways from this game?
Well, I guess should we be worried about Matt Boyd? And I think getting to know him and from what his teammates say, he's going to work it out. He vowed to be better. I think, and I don't know, but just from watching him, and when Ron Gardenhire said that, it's the pace of the game that he's a little too slow. I'm starting to think that maybe he's inside his own head a little bit. And instead of just going out there and playing and having fun, which he has mentioned I think he's thinking a little bit too much about it. So what Matt Boyd needs to do, I would imagine, and I'm sure this is what he's going to do. He's vowed to get better. He's going to revisit what has been successful for him. Probably look at a lot of video of him pitching and see where he, is he dropping his arm when on a changeup or whatever. I mean, I'm not a pitching aficionado, so. But I think that he will right the ship, and he'll do it rather quickly. I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, we're starting to run out of games. We're almost at the halfway point of the season, it seems like. So I guess that's my biggest takeaway. Obviously, the bullpen playing, again, pitching well. Gregory Soto has been a find. I mean, we don't, we hope that George Buck Farmer comes back really, really soon. But Soto in that 8th inning role to set up Joe Jimenez looks like that's going to be okay. And that's what you need, you need guys to step up. And, Willie Castro hitting a home run. So it was kind of a mixed bag, I guess. But my big take right now is that Matt Boyd, the ace of the Tiger staff, needs to, find his groove here a little bit and figure out what's been going on.
Agreed, Art. And as you mentioned, the season is going by fast. We actually just passed the quarter point of the season. You also talked a little bit about what Gardy had to say about Matt Boyd's performance. For our second topic of the big three, let's take a look at some of the clubhouse notes. And to do that, we have got to bring in Carly, who is all over those press conferences, like the one you mentioned, Art, with Gardy. Carly, Gardy. Oh my God.
Gardy and Cardi. All right. I love it.
Cardi. Oh, man. Well, Carly, what can you tell us about what I said to say after that game last night?
That was great. Thanks, Danielle. I know we know it was an unfortunate loss against the White Sox Tigers last night, breaking that 4-game winning streak. And as Art have mentioned, little bit of a talk about Matt Boyd, what's going on with him. But before we go through those post-game comments, let's check on and CJ Crone, who is on that IL, as we know, following a knee sprain. He spoke to the media before the game to give an update on his injury. He said there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding his injury, but he had twisted his knee during that infamous grounder. The ball did not, in fact, hit his knee. But he's having a really rough time sitting out, so let's hear from him.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. It was really the first time in my career where I was kind of slotted in there every day and playing every day and kind of allowed to make mistakes and learn from them. And, the ebbs and flows of a season and being an everyday player. And to kind of go down like this sucks pretty bad, especially how the boys were playing.
It's never fun to get injured as an athlete. But moving on to the actual game, we saw pitcher Matt Boyd suffering, as we were talking about earlier. He didn't have the best game and feels the loss fell somewhat on him, especially with his poor play in that 5th inning. So let's check out what he had to say.
Team gave us a chance to win today, and I didn't do my job on that end. So I'm going to continue to get better. Mark my words, I will be better, and I will be better from this. And I'm continuing to tread forward and just push down this path.
It's hard to hear him talking about that. Great guy. We want to see him do well for himself and for the team. And manager Ron Gardenhire was asked if he was worried or concerned about Boyd so far this season. So let's hear what he had to say about that.
I don't know how many starts he's had right now, 3 starts or something like that. We're just going to go with him. I mean, he's just got to figure it out himself. Andy can talk to him all he wants to. He knows what he has to do. It's just about repeating it out there. And the things that I get concerned about more than anything else is when something starts happening, the pace gets slower and slower.
So we don't see that happening quite yet. But with this unexpected downtime, today, hopefully Boyd can take this time to regroup and focus on what he needs to work on, hopefully get his head back in the game, if you will, and come back even stronger. And then on the flip side of things, though, got to brighten this up. Willie Castro, with his season debut, he played well, and it really was a back and forth game. It wasn't like the White Sox were leading the whole time. Some positive takeaways, right, that we saw in that game, a bit of a silver lining, But Danielle and Art, isn't it crazy how the score of a baseball game can change like at the drop of a hat?
Definitely, Carly. And I think you nailed it, though. Art talked a little bit about the depth that this team has. And even though they lost that game, I think that did come through a little bit in last night's game. And like you said, it takes one poor inning for the whole entire game to swing. So like you said, definitely some bright spots. Thank you so much for joining us for that, Carly. You guys, as I mentioned, you can use the hashtag Word on Woodward to submit some questions, thoughts, anything you want to say. Carly's going to be looking all over social media channels for when she joins us later in the show, and we'll try to get to your comments. So Carly, thank you, and we'll see you later.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. See you soon.
See ya.
Moving on to our third and final topic of the big three for today. You guys, as I mentioned earlier, it is the annual celebration of the Negro Leagues weekend at Comerica Park. And they always do a passing of the bat ceremony. So the passing of the bat really celebrates the past, the present, and the future of African-American baseball. It had to look a little bit different this year, but it was still a very special moment.
Hey guys, I am Warner Blakely, and I am honored to represent this year's future generation in the passing of the bat ceremony as part of the Detroit Tigers Negro League weekend. As a native Detroiter and a Detroit Power alumni, I am honored to take part in a tradition that embodies the past, present, and future contributions of African American ball players to the game of baseball. I am thankful for all the men and women who have paved the way for me, and I hope to make an impact on the game for future generations. I look forward when I can come to Comerica Park to sign such a historic bat and officially become part of this tradition. Thank you.
Huge shout out to Warner Blakely. We all look forward to when he can actually come to Comerica Park and sign that bat. We also wish him the best of luck in his future baseball career. We know that he was drafted, so that's really exciting. A Detroit kid to make it to the big leagues. Very cool. And that whole passing of the bat ceremony, like I said, it covers the past, the present, and the future of African-American baseball. And I think it's a really cool thing. So hopefully they can do that the proper way later this year.
Oh, I hope so too. I mean, yeah, what a wonderful ceremony. You know, kind of gave me goosebumps looking at all the past Tigers. It was really good to see Larry Herndon right at the end, who made the catch, the final out of the '84 World Series. You know, kind of a forgotten Tiger a little bit, but a big contributor to the Tigers. When I think they acquired him from the Giants many years ago, but just wonderful. And then, of course, my all-time favorite Tiger, Lou Whitaker, in there smiling. Oh, happy, sweet Lou. So. You know, it's really weird when we have this kind of celebration, and I look back on it, I have a difficult time because I guess if I look, I love the Tigers. I love a lot of Tigers and all that. But when I really look at like certain eras, my favorite players just by coincidence happen to be African American. You know, I mean, I loved Willie the Wonder and Gates Brown, one of my all-time favorites, and you know, it just goes on, you know, and Sweet Lou is my main man. So it's just, I don't think of it in terms of contributions that they made because of their race, if I can say that. I look at it as contributions that they made to the Tigers. And I think by having ceremonies like this, which are a great thing and really kind of pump me up when I look at it, it's just that, you know, these are great ball players. You know, they're just great ball players, and there's a tradition, and we have to honor their legacy because in the beginning, unfortunately, and we'll get into this with Ray Doswell from the Negro Leagues, it didn't quite happen as soon as it, you know, Jackie Robinson, what was it, 1947 or something, he finally broke the color barrier. But, you know, I don't know. I mean, I get kind of emotional thinking about it because I look back and I always think to myself that if I were, you know, came around 20 years earlier, Willie Horton wouldn't have been my favorite player as a kid, or Gates Brown, because they wouldn't have been allowed to play. And you know, that's just kind of weird. I try to kind of, you know, we shouldn't forget it. It's odd, even though the Negro Leagues were a thriving league, a great business, great minority-owned business. But aside from that, I know I'm kind of rambling here a little bit, but I just think it's a great thing. I can't tell you how impressed I have been with the way the Tigers And maybe it's because they're a charter member of the American League, been around, Detroit's oldest professional team since 1901, but how they have a sense of history of their sport and how they do it right. And I know, as I said, I'm rambling, but, every time I watch the Tigers play and I see that number 6 patch and how big it is, because it's really large. A lot of these patches are not, I just sit there and think, man, I wish Al were around, but man, what a great way to honor him. And what a great way the Tigers present Major League Baseball and present the Tigers, and they don't forget their past. So this passing of the bat doesn't get any better than that. Hopefully that all made sense, because I'm kind of rambling here. I
followed, so hopefully everyone else did too. I was able to follow you there.
Well,
and you're right. The Tigers do a great job.
You might be used to me though, Daniella. You might be the only one who's able to follow me. And Carly, and I'll give Carly credit too.
Yeah. We definitely know you on a different level, so all of that made sense. So sorry to the viewers if you didn't follow as well, but you'll catch on soon. You'll catch on. As you mentioned, the Tigers do a great job with recognizing their history, and of course with the Negro League celebration that happens every single year. And we'll talk about that more coming up with some great guests on this edition of The Word on Woodward. That wraps up our big 3 for today, you guys. A big thank you to Chevy for presenting the big 3. Chevy cares. That's why Chevy Clean dealers are committed to using enhanced vehicle cleaning measures with CDC approved cleansers before delivering your vehicle after purchase or service. So when you're ready, you can find new roads with confidence. You guys, we're going to continue talking some baseball here, and who better to talk about the Tigers with us than radio play-by-play announcer Dan Dickerson. Dan is joining us for today's mailbag, delivered to you by Little Caesars. Dan, as always, it's great to see you. I'm so glad that you had some time to join us today. Bummer that the Tigers aren't playing, but I'm glad you're here with us.
I'd rather be here with you guys.
I thought so. Let's get right into this one, Dan. I'm going to set up this first question for you. Bill from Southgate asks, this is a really fun question because today is International Left-Handers Day. Who is your all-time favorite Tigers southpaw?
It's a great question. And you immediately go to, the greatest lefty, probably the two greatest pitch, Mickey Lolich. Hal Newhouser, of course, did not get a chance to see pitch. But, I mean, those are the two of the greatest. I love the another guy from the Mickey Lolich era, John Hiller, had such an amazing career. Starter, reliever. He logged an incredible number of innings. We watched Mickey Lolich in the 68 World Series here. One of the greatest performances that you will ever see, 27 innings, pitching on 2 days rest and a complete game in Game 7. Just an amazing performance. So you've got John Hiller in that same era, starter, reliever, of course, turned into a great closer, but relievers logged 150, 170 innings in those days. He was an incredible arm. Frank Tanana was one of my favorites. I probably got a chance to see him more than just about anybody, just because there weren't that many games on TV back when Mickey Lolich was with the Tigers. And he was a phenomenal piece of the Tigers about Frank Tanana. He goes from being that hard-throwing, firing bullets pitcher of the 1970s to a guy in the 1980s who's getting by on guile and still busting guys in at probably 85, 86 instead of the whatever he threw in the mid-70s, 90s, mid-90s. I mean, he completely had to reinvent himself, and he was a very effective pitcher. And, of course, everybody remembers the 1-0 game over Toronto to clinch the 87 Eastern Division title. So he's a favorite. As I said, I like the power arms, and that's why, and there really haven't been that many power arms from the left side, if you think about it, in recent years for the Tigers. So a guy who fascinates me is the guy that you mentioned in your review of the game yesterday, Gregory Soto. I mean, this is an amazing power arm. This is a closer in the making for on the road. They got Joey Menez. Now, this is amazing stuff. He's always had a great arm. The performance the last couple of years was not great. High walks, low strikeouts, not a lot of swings and misses. The change that Rick Anderson made with Gregory Soto is just, it's like career changing. It looks like a completely different pitcher. I look forward to every one of his outings on the mound. His start this year has been phenomenal, but that big power arm, 98 to 100 from the left side, is a lot of fun to watch. This kid, with the changes he's made, is going to be a huge impact pitcher, it looks like, for years to come.
A lot of great Tigers lefties, Dan. That was a great answer. And some of them that I forgot about. You know who else is left-handed? Art Regner. Art, are you celebrating National Left-Handed Day? Yeah.
You bet. I am definitely. I am a lefty. Since I'm my own biggest fan, if I may say so. I was going to say me as my favorite southpaw, but I have to agree. I have to agree with. We can't forget Willie Hernandez, a great lefty too. What he did,
Right.
But it's got to be Mickey Lolich, I would imagine, or followed closely by Prince Hal Newhouser, who sometimes doesn't get the credit. I know Double D will agree with me because supposedly he won a Cy Young Award because it was the war years. So, and granted, great players like Ted Williams were off in battle, and and God bless them and thank them for their service. But didn't he? And and I'm going off the top of my head, Dan. Didn't Hal Newhouser then win another Cy Young Award when Major League Baseball players were all back? I mean, he kind of.
That's the point.
Yeah, right. I mean, come on, give me a break. I mean, he did it twice. One time, okay, during the war years, but he took advantage of it.
Right.
And I think Hal Newhouser and Mickey Lolich are both from Michigan. With all that said, though, so that Hal Newhouser, he doesn't get his due either. He really doesn't get his due. Prince Hal was a prince of a man, shall I say? But that I guess I would have to piggybacking on Dan's question. Since it is my day today, National Left-Handers Day, or is that what it's called? Anyway, I just have to. Is that it? Is that it? Do we have it?
International
It's not like
Left-Handers Day.
international. Wow, it's the whole world celebrating me today.
Yeah.
That's the way it should be. That's the way it should. Lolich and Newhouser have to be right up there. Willie Hernandez too. I mean, there have been some great lefties, and I think my greatest left-hander, as far as, and I don't know if this really counts, but as far as batting stance or batting from the left side, has to be Dick McAuliffe. Dick McAuliffe. Dan, I think you've got some work going on behind you. Hopefully, I think you just had a. Yeah, really, Dan, are you all right? I think somebody. I think somebody might be cleaning your gutters or something. Anyway, yeah, you're right though. Dick McAuliffe's stance, it doesn't get better than that. You saw it too, right, Daniella?
I did see it.
There's definitely something going outdoors there in your.
It's just.
Dan's always got something going on in his backyard. He's always got the craziest background.
Yeah, really. I don't know.
He never misses a thing.
This one is for you. Daniel from Alpena asks, AL Central is very tight with only one sub 500 team. Do you think this competition will help the teams in the playoffs?
I would say in a 162 game schedule, I would say yes. I think it would help them in the playoffs because they've pretty much probably have been playing baseball, playoff baseball, or that mindset for the last 6 weeks or so in order to get into the playoffs. In this 60 game schedule, I am not so sure. And my reasoning is because I think when there's about 15 games to play, it's playoff baseball right then and there. I mean, that these guys are all going to be playing hard. So, and trying to get into the playoffs. I think you're going to have a lot of teams, being able to compete for it. And so because of that, I would say that maybe because of the way baseball's played and it's a streaky game and guys get on streaks, instead of the team that finally gets through the fray and makes the playoffs, I think the teams that are going to do well come playoff teams are the teams that are the hottest at the end of the season. I think that is going to be more of a carryover effect. I mean, sometimes let's say Kansas City because they're not going to make the playoffs, but let's say they go on some miraculous run. Well, by the time, and we've seen this a lot in sports, by the time they finally get to the playoffs, just to get there, they have spent everything. everything.
Mhm.
But I think this year, and they don't probably do quite as well. I think this year the teams that are hot, that are really hot and playing good baseball, I think that they have the advantage more so than a team. Because I guess what I'm trying to say is all races are going to be close. I think that I don't think anyone's really going to run away with anything. I just think 60-game schedule, everything's compacted. Baseball's a streaky game, so by that time, I don't think it's the competition within the division. I think it's just who's ever playing very, very well at the end of the season. I think those are the teams to look out for, and hopefully one of those teams is wearing the Old English D.
I hope you're right, Art. And Dan, you mentioned Gregory Soto playing well this season, being a bright light for the Tigers. And of course, he had a great performance again last night. Another guy who had a great performance last night was Willie Castro. So this next question is for you. Ian from Livonia asked, Willie Castro looked great yesterday. How much should we expect to see him in the lineup the next few weeks?
I think you're going to see Willie Castro a lot. That swing right there, that was a really good pitcher that he hit that home run off. Dylan Cease is going to be a star in this league. He's got a big power arm. He's got all the pitches that you would want. He's a really good pitcher. I loved how he went up there so aggressive right after the grinder double and ripped that ball. Look how far back that went. This is a kid who's got developing power, just turned 22 years old, had never played third base. He had played 3 innings at third base in his career. Tigers got him in a trade from Cleveland a couple of years ago. He started at third yesterday because they moved Candelario out. I'm an experiment. It's like, okay, can this guy handle playing third base? He looked fine at third. He's got the arm to play third. He's got the quickness to play third, it looks like. And that bat, again, that's a developing power bat at age 22. Switch hitter who can run. He had 11 home runs at Toledo last year. And to hit that yesterday, a bomb, and then hit 2 more line drive singles, this kid is going to get every chance to show, because it looked like it was going to be Candelario at first. Lugo's got more experience, probably. Lugo's bat clicked at the major league level. As long as Willie Castro is hitting, I think he'll get the bulk of the starts at third. And it's really, he looked great in the summer. And we talked about it as we were doing some of those live stream broadcasts. Keep an eye on this kid, and a lot of other guys have gotten some of the publicity in terms of the top prospects, rightfully so. But don't forget about Willie Castro. I think right now this kid is one of the most exciting prospects the Tigers have seen in years for all of his skills. And if he can hold down third, that's huge. And he could add a lot to this line.
Talking about some of the lineup changes that we saw yesterday leads us into our 4th and final question. Art, I'm going to have you answer it first, and then Dan can answer after. But Glenn from White Lake asks, with Crone out of the lineup and the 9-hitter leading the team in home runs, is Gardy going to pick the lineup out of a hat?
Well, first of all, forgive me. I can't take my eyes off of what's going on behind Dan at his house. You must be. Are you washing windows or something? I mean, something's going on. Yeah. There you go. There. See, right there. Right there. It's like a sponge or something. A sponge on a stick.
This way. Here, we're going this way. No. You're obviously distracted.
I'm into it. No. I mean, I think it's fine. I mean, you're doing maintenance on your house. That's good. You're a good neighbor. All right. First of all,
the question.
If Ron Gardenhire were to do that, if he were to do that, pick a lineup out of the hat, knowing him and his sense of humor, I would imagine the first name drawn out would be Billy Martin, and then maybe he would go on from there. All kidding aside, though, I have to think that he would not do that. This team lost 114 games last year, and I don't think they resorted to that tactic. In seriousness, they're really competitive. They've got to put the best lineup out there every day, especially in a 60-game schedule. So in all seriousness, I don't think in a 162 game schedule, can you do something that's a little bit off the cuff and kind of bizarre and odd? Yeah, you can do that. When you're only playing 60 games, and right now the Tigers are in the thick of it. I don't know if the playoffs started today, if they would qualify, but they'd at least be on the cusp. But I think, as funny as it is, and I think it would be a riot, and I could see Ron Gardenhire maybe doing something like that because he's kind of has that type of personality. I think that there's just too much at stake right now. You've got to just see, who do I have today? I've got to put the best lineup possible. I mean, we're facing a lefty, and I picked out my whole roster. I have half my pitching staff is batting today. I mean, any way you look at it, I don't think he can do it, just because each and every game, because of a 60-game schedule, is magnified by 10 or something. So I like the idea. I would do it. I would do it, but I don't think Ron Gardenhire would.
Probably not. But as you mentioned, Art, they are in the mix, and he does need to put the best lineup he possibly can out there. Dan, do you think we will see any changes to the lineup, or how do you think this is going to look in the near future?
I think this is a great question. They're not going to pick a lineup out of a hat, but with CJ Cron, you can pencil him into that number 4 spot every day. And believe me, even though he was hitting 190, there was value in having him in that spot every day. He hit 4 home runs. He drawn 9 walks. This is not a patient hitter. He clearly was trying to be a little more disciplined. I think it was starting to pay off for him. They're going to miss that bat, and there is no obvious replacement. Miguel Cabrera is going to stay in the 3 slot, and Jonathan Schoop, limited at bats in the cleanup spot in his career. He has not done well. That's the worst spot for Jonathan Schoop in his career. I mean, he might end up there. I think it's a really interesting debate to talk about moving Jacoby Jones. He was not going to do this. Ron Gardenhire was not going to move him out of that number 9 spot. Sometimes there's just something about, first of all, he likes having when that number 9 hitter is your most productive hitter for average, for power, and right now consistency. I think it does bring up a very interesting debate. Do you move him out of a spot where he's been comfortable and productive, risking the fact that he might, if you move him to the 2 spot, which is where a lot of elite hitters are hitting right now, or the cleanup spot, that he changes what he's doing and doesn't become as effective. In the number 9 spot, he's not going to get as many chances to impact a game as he would in the number 2 spot. In the 162-game season, every spot down the lineup gets about 18 more plate appearances than the one above it. So, I mean, think about that number of plate appearances over the course of a season. You want to give them to your best hitter. So Gardy doesn't appear like he wants to move Jones, but I think Jacoby Jones' confidence and his production. See, Art, there's something going on. Now there's somebody trying to break in.
That sounds like a lawsuit, Dan. I'm sorry. Someone's attorney's going to be calling you for a dog bite, it sounds like.
At some point, you have to see if Jacoby Jones, who is just brimming with confidence. I mean, Ron Gardenhire calls him John Wayne. He saunters into his office and says, hey, he always does the imitation, I'm ready to go today, no matter what. At some point, I think you give him the shot to move up from that number 9 spot, especially if he's consistent as he's been game to game. And this goes back to the last 70 games before last year, when he hit 260 with power for a 70-game stretch. I'd be fascinated to see what he did maybe in that number 2 spot.
Very interesting points, Dan. I do think the biggest hope for the Tigers is to get CJ Cron back and healthy as soon as possible. And I do have one more question for you before we let you go. We're talking a lot about the Negro League weekend that the Tigers normally put on, and that is this coming weekend. Obviously, it looks a little bit different, but you're always a big part of that, Dan. And what does it mean for you to be a part of that?
It's always important to remember when those leagues were thriving, especially 1920 into the late 1930s. It went past that into the 40s, but once integration came along, the Negro Leagues began to die out. And I think what I try to always highlight that weekend is the contributions of the great players from the Negro Leagues in the 20s and 30s, those who played for the Detroit Stars in that time, who had some very good teams and some Hall of Famers on their team. and try to always remind the audience and fans how unfortunate it was that there was the need for the Negro Leagues in the first place. There never should have been a need for the Negro Leagues. That the major leagues were segregated way going back to the 1890s until Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in 1947. So just try to pass along that history to make sure that we celebrate the Negro Leagues and the contributions of those players, and always remember why they were needed in the first place. Which is a tragedy and really a stain on Major League Baseball going back to the early decades of this century or last century.
Dan, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll let you get back to your window cleaner / intruder, whatever's going on over there. Go take care of it. And we will be listening to you tomorrow for the Tigers game. Thanks again for joining us. And the dog,
Beautiful.
He's making an appearance. Oh, both of them. So cute. They got the
at least we haven't seen like a human hand or something in one of the dog's mouths.
Yeah,
I mean, so that's rest assuring. That's rest assuring. Hey, wait, Double D, I've got a question for you. Did you
Yes, sir.
Did you know that after the Detroit Stars disbanded, that Detroit had another Negro League team, a black baseball team. They only played for a season in the East-West League. Do you know the name of that team?
I do not. I should, but I do not.
Well, you know what? I just found out about them yesterday when I was going to do a couple of interviews. It was the Detroit Wolves. The Detroit Wolves played one season after the Stars disbanded in like 1932 or 1933. So, hey, I'd love to see what their uniform looked like and what their logo is too, because I love everything about the Stars. I love their uniform. The Turkey Stearns, great players. Yeah, Stars uniform, but yeah, the Detroit Wolves. Get on that, Double D. I want to hear on tomorrow night's broadcast. I want to hear you just expound about the Wolves.
You got it, Art.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate
it. Thank you, Dan. Thank you for joining us. We'll be catching up with you soon. And another big thank you to Little Caesars for presenting the mailbag right here on the Word on Woodward. Little Caesars proudly introduces their hot and ready pepperoni cheeser. You get a large pizza topped with classic pepperoni, fresh mozzarella, and a toasted Parmesan and Asiago cheese crust for just $7. Try our no-contact pizza portal or delivery from Little Caesars. You guys, we still have a very exciting show coming up for you. Ken Cal is going to join us shortly. Nico Goodrum will also join us, and Ray Doswell, Vice President at the Negro League Museum, will join us to continue talking about the celebration of the Negro Leagues that the Tigers put on. But right now, remember everybody, you can use the hashtag #WordOnWoodward to get your thoughts, comments, questions live on the show. Let's see what you guys have submitted so far today.
That's right. It's time for Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meyer. Today, I'm joined by Vice President of Marketing for the Detroit Tigers, Ellen Hilzerang. How's it going, Ellen?
Hey, Carly. How are you?
Very good. Very good. Okay, so first let's talk about you and what your job entails. What kind of responsibilities does your job hold? Like, what does your day-to-day look like?
Oh, geez. So my day-to-day is going to change if it's a home game or it's an away game. It also changes in season, out of season, but primarily I oversee the marketing, promotions, special events, social, all the really fun stuff, right? So I like to think of myself as the person that helps to connect fans in a really fun way and in a meaningful way to Detroit Tigers baseball.
Love that. Well, you're doing a great job. And obviously, this is a season unlike any other. So how are the Tigers keeping fans involved from a distance?
Well, first, I'd like to say that we have the best fans in baseball, and we want the best fans in baseball to remain safe. So we want everyone to continue to social distance, wear their masks, and know that, we really wish that we could all be together at the ballpark. But the longer we social distance and practice all those things like wearing our masks, the sooner we will be back together again. So one of the things that we worked on in the off season was our Detroit Roots campaign. And that was going to be our official marketing campaign for the 2020 season. Of course, the season didn't launch in April like we wanted it to. So we had some extra time to think about it. And so we started thinking about Detroit roots, rooting for each other. And we realized that as a community, that's really what we're doing. We're rooting for each other. We're rooting for our frontline heroes. We're rooting for just everybody who's been impacted by this horrible pandemic. And so we realized that this was a great opportunity from a virtual standpoint to encourage fans to root from home. So we came up with all kinds of cool things. We're getting ready to start selling a Detroit Roots from Home pack where fans will get a T-shirt, a mug. They can also, there's also a lanyard in there, all the cool things that you need so you can root for your Tigers at home. What's most important is we want our fans to know that we're rooting for them and we're going to get through this together.
Love that. Okay, so one thing that I do want to talk about that I personally loved was the longest pitch. So can you tell us how that was a good way of getting the fans involved?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So everybody knows that opening day in Detroit is like, it's like a statewide holiday, right? It's the biggest party and everybody loves it and everybody looks forward to it. So we were trying to figure out a way that we could make sure that people felt connected. So our friends at Comerica Bank came up with the idea for us to try to launch the longest virtual first pitch. And what was so cool about it, Carly, is that it connected fans from throughout the entire state of Michigan. So we had fans in Grand Rapids, we had fans in Birmingham, we had fans in Detroit, and then we had some special appearances by people like, Mayor Duggan and our Lieutenant Governor, and we even had some Red Wings in there. We had some folks from 97 won the ticket. So it was just so amazing and so cool. And then for the first pitch to start off with Alan Trammell and then to end with Ron Gardenhire inside the ballpark on opening day, you couldn't have asked for a better way to kick off the season.
I loved watching that. Head on over to the Tigers social media channels if you have not yet seen it, because it's great. And another one of the really sad parts of this 2020 baseball season is that fans can't be in the ballpark to experience some of their favorite special events and celebrations. And one of those annual traditions is Negro Leagues weekend. Is the team doing anything to recognize that virtually?
Oh, absolutely. So Negro Leagues weekend is like one of our premier events that we host every year at the ballpark. And I think we're all brokenhearted that we can't be together. We can't bring back our former Negro Leagues players, but we do have some great events planned virtually. So here's a list of some of the things that fans can do. And I encourage everyone to stay tuned to Tigers.com and all of our social platforms so that you can see some of these great events and you can take part in them. So always on the Friday of Negro Leagues weekend, we always have what's known as the passing of the bat ceremony. And that's a really meaningful ceremony where we have a youngster from Detroit who gets to actually receive a bat that has been passed down and signed from generations of African-American ball players. And it's really, Carly, it's really very moving. So this year, we're able to do it virtually. And so we took some footage from past seasons, and then we've added at the end Warner Blakely Jr., who's a young man who was drafted by the Angels this year. He's a young African-American ball player, and I'm telling you, you want to see this video because at the end of the video, Warner does this really heartfelt comments about how he's so honored to not only represent the city of Detroit, but baseball, and how he's so honored to receive this bat. So that's going to come out on Friday. And then we also have, this is really cool, we have created some digital baseball cards of Negro Leagues players, because of course when they were playing, they didn't have baseball cards. So we were able to, with our creative services department and other consultants, we were able to create these fabulous digital baseball cards that really pay tribute and tell the story of our Negro Leagues players. And then finally, amongst a bunch of other things, so again, remember to stay tuned to our social platforms, but finally, we also have what is really special is every Sunday of Negro Leagues weekend, we host the Willie Horton African American Legacy Award. And we were able this year to bring together several past honorees on a Zoom call. And it included Torrey Hunter, Craig Monroe, Lou Whitaker, Chet Lemon, and more. Gary Sheffield. And so they've all come together on this Zoom call, which we're going to release over the weekend. And it pays tribute to Mr. Horton and all of the amazing contributions that he's made to the community and to baseball. But it also talks about the role of African Americans in baseball. And I'm telling you, I've had a chance to get a sneak peek at it, and it's really riveting. And I encourage everyone to stay tuned to our social platforms and Tigers.com so they can take a look at it for themselves.
Well, I know I'll be watching it. So you guys, like she said, make sure you stay tuned to the Tigers' social media platforms to watch that. And Ellen, the Tigers have had a really involved history of hosting events to recognize the Negro Leagues and diversity and inclusion just in general. What do opportunities like this mean to the organization?
Well, I'm going to make it personal. So as an African-American woman in baseball, I know that I would not be the vice president of marketing were it not for many pioneers who went before me. So for me, this is extremely important because it continues to tell the story of people who continue to play the game even if they weren't accepted. And so this is really a meaningful moment, really meaningful story at this particular moment in our country. And so this is the Detroit Tigers way of saying that we really understand the importance of the Negro Leagues. And most importantly, we understand the importance of continuing this tradition so that we can educate younger generations so they can understand that baseball is an amazing game. It brings people together and it unites people.
Okay, so with that answer, let me ask you this. How important do you think it is to have diversity in baseball and not just recognize it, but celebrate it too?
Oh, it's really, really important. We always want to reflect our community, the composition and demographics of our community. But it's important because baseball is a sport for everyone. So what's great about baseball is we have African-American players, but we also have players from Venezuela. We have players from Japan. So it really is like this great melting pot. And so we are the perfect place to start celebrating and continue to celebrate diversity and to understand that many different voices make a huge impact. And when all those voices are melted together, we get a wonderful game, and that game is baseball.
That we do. I love it. Okay, so what else can fans look forward to this season?
Oh, wow. I wasn't ready for that question. Okay. So we're going to continue to create more and more Detroit Roots content. We're working on lots of different ways so that fans can share their story and tell us how they're rooting for the Tigers. We're also going to look to our players and get our players to tell the story of how they're rooting for our fans. You know, we kicked off the season with a special celebration honoring our frontline heroes. The players wore the I Root for Frontline Heroes shirts. We had frontline heroes announcing the starting lineup. And so fans can look forward to more and more ways for the Tigers to connect with our fans so we continue to root for each other. We'll root for them. They'll root for us. And I know one thing that's kind of cool is I'm having a lot of fun watching Tigers baseball these days, right? So I think one of the things that we hope to have is that we keep on playing the way we were playing and we keep having a good time. Because what we really want this summer is for Detroit Tigers baseball to be something that can cheer people up, make them happy, make them excited, and kind of give them an escape from all the challenging things that we're experiencing as a community.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ellen. You nailed that. All right. Well, I can't thank you enough for joining me on Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meyer. I really hope that I can see you soon at the ballpark. Until then, take care.
Thanks, Carly.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Thank you, Carly and Ellen. Again, everybody, make sure you're following the Tigers and all of their social media channels and their website to see everything that they're doing for this amazing Negro League celebration this weekend and everything else that they're doing throughout the season. Carly is going to stick with us because, you guys, it's time for Bet You Didn't Know, presented by Motor City Casino Hotel. The Cleveland Indians come into town tomorrow for arguably the Tigers' biggest test of the season thus far. Art, why don't you start us off? What should we expect out of the Indians tomorrow?
Well, first of all, I have a real tough time accepting the fact that Cleveland has dominated the Tigers the last couple of seasons. I can always remember Cleveland being a bad baseball team, but they are far from a bad baseball team. I mean, they have been a pretty good darn team here for the last several seasons. Cleveland's pitching, in one word, is dynamic. They lead the American League in ERA, shutouts, opponent's batting average, whip, and it is just amazing. I mean, look at that. 202 strikeouts already. Opponents are hitting just 198, and their shutouts are 4, ERA combined 2.57. Now, Shane Bieber, who is the ace of the staff, the Tigers are going to see him on Saturday, leads Major League Baseball in strikeouts with 43. He is definitely a Cy Young candidate. That is Saturday. But Friday starter, whom we just saw, Aaron Chevalier, he is a strikeout pitcher. I mean, he throws a lot of strikes. His ERA is 2.84. He has 23 Ks in 19 innings pitched, which means he's going to be around the plate. I would expect what the Tigers are going to do against Chevalier is I expect what they'll do is try to foul off as many pitches as possible, try to work the count, get his pitch count up, which you always should do. It's always good to get the starters' pitch count up, as we all know. But what they're going to also be looking for, if they can work that pitch count up, is force him to throw the slider. Sit on that slider, because opponents are hitting 333 when he throws that slider, and they've also hit 2 home runs off that. So Cleveland, pitching is it. I mean, they're a great staff. They lead the American League in virtually every pitching category. Shane Bieber is a stud, and Aaron Savalier is not that far back. And so Tigers got a tough task here on Friday and Saturday. Cleveland, I think, has beaten them like 5,000 times in a row right now. So Tigers are going to exact a little bit of revenge, and what better way than to take a couple of their very, very good starting pitchers and knock them around a little bit. So, but pitching, the name of the game. If Cleveland is all about pitching, at least in the early part of this season.
Carly, Art gave us a look at how great Cleveland's pitching has been. What can the Tigers expect from the Indians at the plate?
Yeah, I mean, like as Art said, the pitching has been outstanding for Cleveland, but it's needed to be for them to compete. The Indians have been struggling at the plate, as they are currently dead last in batting average, slugging, and in the bottom 5 in home runs, strikeouts, and on-base percentage. Pretty rough there for the Indians. They only have one batter hitting 300 so far, and the big problem comes from the middle of their order. They've made the postseason the past 3 seasons, riding the usually dependable bats of Carlos Santana, Franmil Reyes, Francisco Lindor, and Jose Ramirez. However, this season, those 4 are batting a combined 241 with 64 strikeouts this season, giving Cleveland an above league average 117 batters left on base. So to put that into context, that's 38 more than the Tigers have had this season. However, as Art mentioned, the pitching has been fantastic. So despite the offense struggling, they still have a run differential of plus 11 on this season. So this we can expect them to see them strong, having strong starts out of Ivan Nova, Spencer Turnbull, and Michael Fulmer to have good starts as the Tigers look to take this series. Fingers crossed. We were playing well. We lost yesterday, but I have high hopes. But what about the Tigers, Daniela? Who do you have your eye on right now?
Well, if you can believe it, you guys, we have now passed the quarter mark on the 2020 season. So I really do want to highlight someone who has been a huge bright spot for the Tigers so far this season, and that is Jacoby Jones. He has been a plus defensive player in center field, but let's look at how much better his hitting has been compared to last season. His batting average is up nearly 70 points, and he is slugging a ridiculous .717, which puts him at 4th in Major League Baseball right now. He's nearly halfway to his career high in home runs, and that's only in 1/6 of the at-bats that he had compared to last season. He is also on pace to break his career high in RBIs, which is astonishing, seeing that he's doing it from the 9 spot. As Art talked about, the Indians are pitching well, but there are no easy outs in this Tigers lineup right now. 10 different Tigers have hit home runs, and Jones has been getting a lot of RBI chances with the speed of Victor Reyes, who has 4 steals, and Austin Romine also batting well with a .308 average right now. So, Carly, as you said, let's hope the Tigers can keep their bats hot and pad this lead in the division, because the Indians are only a half a game back from the Tigers right now. So they definitely need to take a couple of these games here. And as Art said, I think the Indians have beaten the Tigers the last 5,000 times. So I think the Tigers are due for one, right?
Yes. Yeah, I hope
agree.
so. I hope so.
I do too, you guys. And that wraps up our Bet You Didn't Know for today. Another thank you to Motor City Casino Hotel for presenting Bet You Didn't Know right here on the Word on Woodward this week and every week. And Carly, I know that you've been all over social media. What do you have for us today?
That's right, Daniela. Okay, first up, we're going to head on over to the Detroit Tigers Instagram. They posted this awesome shot of a few Tigers players, and we can see from left to right, it was Castro, Lugo, Miggy, Candelario, and Castro. I mean, the picture, I said Castro twice. The picture, that was a little confusing. The picture looks like a mixtape cover. I mean, it looks like an album cover, like they're ready to drop a rap song, although Miggy did, and we do love that song. So maybe this will be the album cover for, for Miggy's second song of the summer, as Art said. Looking forward to that one. Hopefully we can hear it out of Miggy. I know he's focusing on batting right now, but we're looking to get another summer jam out of Miggy. Okay, now on to the Red Wings. They posted this picture of Gordie Howe with the caption, "The puck is dropped in the corner. Gordie Howe is waiting for you. What would you do?" And actor Dave Coulier, we all know Uncle Joey from Full House, says, quote, "Politely ask him which phase of the Gordie Howe hat trick he's in." So as we know, the Gordie Howe hat trick is 1 goal, 1 assist, and 1 fight in a game. So I had a little bit of a chuckle at that comment, but that's all I have for now. You guys, make sure you're sending in your questions. I got a few on Instagram and on Twitter. Send them anywhere. We'll find them with the hashtag Word on Woodward. Until then, back to you, Daniella.
Thank you, Carly. As she said, you guys use that hashtag Word on Woodward. We've still got a lot coming up in today's show. Tigers shortstop Nico Goodrum is going to join us, and Ray Doswell of the Negro League Museum is going to join Art later for the headliner. Again, hashtag Word on Woodward. I'm going to ingrain that in your guys' brain so you can use it, because we want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear your questions. So make sure that you guys are submitting them, and let's check out what you've said so far. Let's get into Downtown Hockey Town, presented by Labatt Blue Light. Today's guest is your radio play-by-play announcer for the Detroit Red Wings, Ken Kale. Ken, it's always great to have you on. We've got you joining for Downtown Hockey Town today. Excited to talk some playoff hockey with you and also some Red Wings.
Yeah, really excited about that. And boy, what a wild start to the Stanley Cup playoffs finally. And what a game last night. We'll talk a little bit about that between Columbus and Tampa Bay. But I'll tell you what, the hockey has been fantastic. And I give these guys a lot of credit because of their stamina out there. And, you know, when they haven't skated since March, and we're seeing some really good hockey, not only in the play-in matchups, but also in the first games that were played yesterday.
And Ken, we will get into those more. But like I said, we are going to talk some Red Wings. I just want to get your thoughts on some of the recent Red Wings news, most notably that Mo Seider and Filip Zadina are going to go play overseas. Mo Seider will be in Germany, where he played before he was drafted by the Red Wings. And then we'll have Filip Zadina playing in the Czech Republic. What do you think of this move? And do you think we are going to see some more Red Wings prospects doing the same thing?
I think it's a good move, and I know Art and I talk about this a lot when we're off the air, that it's important for the Red Wing youngsters to really get some experience and keep on developing as players. And so when Filip Zadina goes over and he plays for the Czech Republic team and, he keeps improving his game, that's great. Mo Seider had a terrific year in Grand Rapids. You don't want to see these guys just sit around, wait till December when the American Hockey League starts again or when the National Hockey League starts. You want them playing, and you want them playing in all different situations. So I think it's a great move. There's always that risk of injury, but these are hockey players. They want to go out. They want to play and perform. So I just think playing in all different situations for Mo Seider and Filip Zadina is just really going to help their development. And when the season starts, they should be ahead of the curve in December.
Ken, another interesting thing is Kasper Kotkaniemi, who's also a Red Wing prospect, opted to forego his senior season at Boston U for the, as I like to call them, the Fighting Terriers, and play in Finland, his native Finland. I think that's interesting from the standpoint is that, we don't know if there's going to be college hockey this year. There's a number of Red Wing prospects that are in college. Keith Petruzzelli to say, Jack Adams is coming back from a long layoff with a major knee surgery. I'm kind of curious. I mean, when you look at it that way, I think it's very, very difficult. And the Red Wings are in an odd position. I don't know how you cannot tell these guys that they can't go over and play. And I'm including current Red Wings on the roster. If Dylan Larkin wants to play in Europe, I don't know how you cannot let him play after being off for almost a year.
Well, I think the good thing is that right now it looks like the National Hockey League is going to start their next season in December. At least that's the way things are going. You never know, but playing is always key, Art, and you and I know that, and especially you and I were talking about no college football for Michigan State and the University of Michigan. So how do we know if college hockey is going to be played this year? So I think it's a good move for Kinsella and anybody that can go over and start playing as soon as possible, because you don't want to be stale. And like I mentioned before, if you're playing now and you get a couple months in, and then let's just say that the league starts in December, if you're Philip Zadina, if you're Mo Sider, and you finally make the Red Wing team, then you're just ahead of the curve, and you're going to be that much more better to adapt, I think, in the National Hockey League. So, I think it's up to the players whether or not they want to go out and play, but I think it's a good point, and I think it's a good way that players can get some experience and just keep on playing, because that's the name of the game right now. You want to be ahead of the curve.
Ken, let's take a look at Evgeny Svechnikov for a minute. The Red Wings obviously signed him to a 1-year contract extension, so he will be a Red Wing for at least another year. When you look at him, and we're talking about these guys going to play overseas, is that what you see in the future for Evgeny Svechnikov, or is he going to be staying here hopefully to make the Red Wings next season? Really, what is your prediction on his immediate future with this organization?
Well, it's just too bad a couple of years ago that he suffered that knee injury. I think it was the last preseason game against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he actually lost the entire season, and that just hindered his development. But he really worked hard last year, and I think it's good that the Red Wings signed him for one more year. He's one of those guys that is he's older now. He understands what it takes to be a professional hockey player. He's got some experience playing in Grand Rapids, and it's now or never, I guess, for Evgeny Svechnikov. He's got to make sure that he's going to step in and make something happen when he does play for the Detroit Red Wings. And I think he's at that age right now where his development is going to continue to get better and better. But he's a man now. He's not a boy anymore. So I think he can compete in the National Hockey League. But this is a big season for Evgeny Svechnikov. So I'm sure he wants to go out there and prove that he belongs in the National Hockey League.
Another thing I wanted to ask you about, there was that 5 overtime game, as we saw, like the fourth or fifth longest game in NHL history when Tampa Bay beat the Columbus Blue Jackets. So we're always talking about the players and, what are they doing in between periods? We know they're talking strategy and eating pizza. Or, well, maybe that back in the days, yeah, they're all eating Little Caesars pizza back in the day. Maybe now they're taking, I don't know, beet supplements or something. But what about an announcer? What about somebody like you? I mean, you would have to call a game which was like almost 2.5 games or something like that. I mean, what do you do in between periods? Are you spraying your throat with water or lozenges, or because that has to be a grind on an announcer too.
Well, it certainly is, and I remember the triple overtime game in Carolina. I was tired by the end of that third overtime, and or when the Larionov scored the goal, and I can't imagine going another 2 periods. Although you just you get wrapped up in the game, and that's your job, and that's what you're supposed to do. But what's interesting too is I was watching that overtime game, and they went into the 5th period. And obviously, you start thinking about the Red Wings Montreal Maroons back in 1936. And that one went into 6 overtimes before the Red Wings finally won it on a Mud Bruneteau goal. But I was reading a story somewhere where Jack Adams actually, to get the boys going, he actually had sugar cubes and he dipped them in brandy so that the boys could get energy. And, a question came to mind, where did he get that bottle of booze? That's what I wanted to know. But, I guess you got to do what you got to do. Back then, that's what they thought about, getting the players ready and going. And certainly it must have helped the Red Wings because they won the game and then eventually won the Stanley Cup.
Well, certainly with the way John Tortorella coaches, they seem to put everything in the rearview mirror and just keep focusing forward. I want to say my Vegas Golden Knights, and that's what I'm referring them to as right now, took care of Chicago rather handily, which I can't believe. But anything else intrigue you so far in the playoffs? I know we have a lot of great matchups. I think Boston has really got a hornet by the tail, if that makes any sense, in Carolina, a team that, is just good and young and fast. And who knows? It's still pretty much wide open, I guess, in my book.
The player that really impressed me in that first round against Edmonton was Kubalik of Chicago. He was just outstanding. And he had, 30 goals or 29 goals in the regular season, and he carried it into that series and was actually very, very dangerous. But, Leonard really wasn't tested in that game, only faced 19 shots. But this Vegas club's a really good club, and it wouldn't surprise me if they go to the conference final because they're a tough team. They always seem to get great goalkeeping. They're well coached, and their players play hard each and every game. And it looks like they were ready to play last night against Chicago.
Ken, I've known you a long time, and I just want to be clear on this. In that 3 overtime game in 2002 in Carolina, and I was actually in the booth with you, if you remember that game. That was when I did a post-game show till like 5:30 in the morning. But what I'm curious about, I know in between periods you kept excusing yourself. Are you sure you weren't taking sugar cubes laced with brandy? Are you, because you got happier as the game went on, and I know Paul was looking at me, Paul Woods, and he's saying, "What's up with Kenny? What's up with Kenny? He's real happy. He's real happy. He should be dog tired." So, sugar cubes and brandy, is that the secret?
No, forget the sugar cubes, just the brandy.
That's a Kenny I know. That's the Ken Kellett I know and love, right there.
Ken, we've got some great hockey ahead of us. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have to spend with you today. You know, we could talk hockey all day with you, though, so we'll definitely be having you back very soon. And, guys, I really like your yellow shirts. Did we plan this? I don't.
I didn't plan it. I just wore it.
Well, according to all the fashion gurus in Paris, yellow is the hot color this summer, so I think we're right in step with the fashion mavens that we all are.
It's not yellow for the Boston Bruins, though, right, guys?
No,
not at all. I'm actually rooting for the Carolina Hurricanes. So
I'm in with Vegas all the way. I'm in with Vegas. I'm throwing it all towards Vegas. So maybe it is
gold for you, Art. Maybe it's not
yellow. Yes, it
maybe
is. Yes.
Okay. All right.
A variation of yellow.
Well, Ken, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, a big thank you to Labatt Blue Light for presenting Downtown Hockey Town. Labatt Blue Light, refreshing Canadian Pilsner. Visit your local retailer when safe to pick up some Labatt Blue Light. Another thank you to Ken Kell for joining us. And hockey fans, visit the Word on Woodward YouTube page for an exclusive interview with Director of Player Evaluation, Yuri Fisher. It's a WOW exclusive. It is only available on the YouTube channel, so check it out, the Word on Woodward on YouTube. And of course, you can check out all of our past interviews in case you missed any of those. So guys, we're going to get back to baseball right now. Art and I caught up with Nico Goodrum earlier this week. It's time for Brush Street Beat, presented by McLaren Healthcare, and today's guest is the Detroit Tigers shortstop, Nico Goodrum. Nico, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today.
No problem.
Let's talk some baseball before we get into some other questions we have for you, but you have been really hot. You went 4 for 4 last night against the Red Sox, including a solo home run. So it really seems like you're starting to find your groove, like I said, especially in these last 4 starts for you. What seems to be the difference lately?
Things are just clicking. My work has not changed. I get working every day on both sides of the ball. So I'm seeing the ball pretty good, and every day is just me trying to find a way to get better. So right now everything's clicking.
Nico, when you look at this Tiger club, I'm kind of curious. I know a baseball player. You're playing 60 games this season, but 162, you're playing every day. The old cliche, let's take it one game at a time. But when you look at the next 2 weeks where you're playing some of your nemesis in the White Sox and then the Indians, do you look that far ahead and say, okay, this could be a major make or break point of our season, how well we do against the Tribe and the Sox?
That is a tough question because that's how we take it. We go one game at a time, one pitch at a time. So it's kind of hard not to take that approach. But it's always very competitive. Well, I'm competitive in every game, but definitely in your division is a big deal. So we try to get as many wins as we can. Everyone knows that, and definitely a division, we try to do that too.
This season has obviously brought some challenges upon you guys, especially when it comes to St. Louis because of the positive COVID test. You guys had an entire series postponed, and now the doubleheader on Thursday will also be postponed. It didn't seem like that time off, we'll get, for lack of a better term, really affected you guys heading into the Pittsburgh series. So when this happens, how do you guys stay mentally and physically prepared and in game shape?
Well, for me, I use that those 4 days to kind of reflect on what I could do to get better. My bat was kind of cold then, so I used that time to reflect on what I was doing wrong, what I could improve on, and then taking it to the field in the stadium. So we still worked out each day, so to just stay ready. But nothing compares to a game. So getting your game reps in and doing that, taking that work that you're doing, the extra work in to the games is what's going to do it. So it's tough. It's weird because you're so used to playing so many games once the season starts, but then you sit there and it's 4 days off, and it doesn't seem right. Just like the second off season we had didn't seem right. So, but you just try to stay locked in, and us going to the stadium every day does that.
Last time we had you on the Word on Woodward, you were back in Georgia, your home. You showed off your nice home gym, a little bit off the wall here, but I'm kind of curious. Have you brought any of your gym equipment with you, or do you have a second gym here in Michigan?
No, I didn't travel with any gym equipment. We use everything at the stadium. All the equipment there, we have everything there to use. So I take advantage of that.
Nico, another thing that we wanted to talk to you about is this weekend is actually the annual celebration for the Tigers' Negro League history, and it's a really great moment. Obviously, the celebrations will look a little bit different this year because of COVID-19, but in being a part in all of these celebrations and the events that normally take place during this weekend, how do you feel being a part of it? Because it has to be pretty spectacular seeing how the game is growing and how it continues to change.
No, it's still a special moment. Everyone asks me about fans not being there, what it does, and we all grew up playing without fans. But one thing fans do add is the energy. If a big hit, a big play. So missing the fans is a huge part. Having the fans there is a huge part that we miss. So with anything, if you're celebrating anything, and their energy really adds to it. So it's still a special moment. The fans add that energy as well, but we'll find a way to still celebrate the same way.
What does it mean to you to put on that Stars uniform, that Detroit Stars uniform, which is has that real classic kind of look to it? Is it when you put it on, do you get a emotional, a sense of pride? What goes through your mind when you put that particular jersey on?
It just make you. You're just grateful. They paved the way for me to be able to play this game, and then it looks amazing. It fits me good. I wear the pants up with the stirrups, and I need to tell Schmeckel to give me one. I need to add it to my collection, but it looks good. I like the hat too. They had some swag back then, so I'm always excited to rock the jersey.
Nico, the passing of the bat ceremony is also something that's a really big deal for the Tigers, and it represents kind of passing the bat from African Americans who have made an impact, the current African American players, and then, of course, the future of African Americans in baseball. So being a part of that, how does that make you feel? Because you said they paved the way for you. You're paving the way for younger kids as well.
Yeah, it's tough. I always had a hard time looking at myself in that way. That I always looked at myself as Nico, and that's just how I've been. And it's a special moment to pass that bat, and then knowing that also I'm getting older. and no one wants to admit that, as far as like, wow, I'm 28, and there's younger guys that look at me in a certain way. There's college guys that and high schoolers that look up to me and look at me how I look at the guys that were before me. So it's a special moment, and um, I don't think we're going to be able to pass the bat with this social distancing going on. But like I said, it's still a special moment, and we're going to celebrate as much as we can.
Willie Horton is a Detroit icon. He's from Detroit. I can remember him. I'm old enough to remember him as a player, Willie the Wonder. I am kind of curious, how much have you maybe talked to Willie or got to know him? Has he been a bit of an inspiration to you since you became a Detroit Tiger?
Yeah, Willie texts me all the time, calls me all the time, talking about everything, anything you could think about. He watches me all the time. He watches every game, and even when you think he's not watching, he is watching. So he'll shoot me a text and or call me here and there, just reminding me of a few things, and so our relationship has grown. And I'll see him in the off season. I do a camp with him in the off season for the military. So our relationship definitely has grown since I came to the Tigers.
That's super awesome to have that cool of a relationship with Willie Horton. That has to be something that's you're really proud of, and that's a really cool moment in your career. But growing up in Georgia, we talked about you kind of being a role model for younger kids. Who are some of your role models?
Ooh, my dad, baseball wise, Chipper Jones. Braves were in Georgia. Braves are humongous. That was the thing in Georgia. So as far as baseball, it had to be Chipper Jones. Everyone loved Griffey's stance, so definitely Griffey, Hank Aaron, and that's just a few. But my greatest athlete all time was Kobe. And you can ask anybody, they know this. Is Kobe Bryant. Everything about the guy. He taught you more than just the game of basketball. His life. You looked at him and he was a role model on how you handle situations that you may go through, or how to be a leader. You could just look. You looked at Kobe for what I did for everything. How to go about your business. How to be a professional. So Kobe Bryant, just takes the cake.
Nico, I want to go back to baseball just a bit, because the last time we talked to you, you were really looking forward to playing shortstop. Tigers obviously have gotten off to a really nice start, and I know a professional athlete can't be comfortable, and I hate to sound corny here, but are you in a good place right now? You're playing short. You're playing the position you've always were born to play. You're starting to come around with the bat. That is life pretty good, even during a pandemic, for Nico Goodrum right now?
I'm having fun. You got to make the best of each situation. So playing short is what I enjoy doing. And the Tigers gave me an opportunity to play it again. So everything's been going pretty good. We're kind of getting the hang of how to do the protocol they set up for us as far as the coronavirus and the social distancing and the mask. So things are working out. Like you said, the bat's kind of coming around a little bit now. So I'm just gonna keep up my work, my routine, and bigger and better things.
Nico, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. It's been great to catch up with you. Good luck in the rest of the season. We hope to talk to you soon. And of course, a big thank you to McLaren Healthcare for presenting Brush Street Beat this week and every week right here on the Word on Woodward. You guys can see Nico and the rest of the Tigers team take the field tomorrow. Again, the Indians are in town for a 3-game series. So Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we've got the Cleveland Indians. Going to be an exciting series because, as we know, the Indians have definitely had the Tigers number lately. And you guys, of course, as we just talked about, it is Negro League weekend, the annual Negro League weekend for the Tigers. So in honor of this weekend's event, Art is joined by a very special guest.
Thank you, Daniella. Time now for the headliner presented by Miller Lite. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome in Ray Doswell. He is the Vice President of Curatorial Services at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. Ray, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to this conversation.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Now, I guess maybe an overview for fans that don't know. What can you tell us about the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum? I know it's located in Kansas City, but from what I've read about it, it's just not the history of the Negro Leagues. This is a pretty heavy museum. There's a lot of lessons to be learned at this museum.
Well, we are located at 18th and Vine in Kansas City, Missouri, in the heart of the Jazz District here in Kansas City, where there was great jazz history and great cultural history for African Americans in Kansas City. Baseball plays an important role in African American history, and we tell a national and international story of baseball from the late 1800s through the 1960s. So that chronicles African Americans moving across the country after slavery, after the Reconstruction period, in a period that historians call the Great Migration, to many of our urban centers across the South, but mostly in the Midwest and places like Kansas City and like Detroit, where folks were looking for jobs, looking for opportunities, and building community. And part of building that community was to have baseball teams, many of them semi-professional and professional baseball teams, which formed themselves into leagues that we call the Negro Leagues. And this year, 2020 marks the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Negro National League, the most successful, one of the most successful Black enterprises in American history.
Well, with that said, I know that it is the 100-year celebration. The Tigers this weekend against the Cleveland Indians will pay tribute and wear the old Detroit Stars uniform. I got to go on record right now, Ray. I love that freaking uniform. I think it's beautiful. But with that said, what about this 100-year celebration, and how has COVID-19 impact what was going to be a huge celebration? How have you had to temper that down?
Well, we had a celebration planned beginning in February, and we had a wonderful opportunity to have the Commissioner of Baseball here in the building where the Negro Leagues was founded, the old Paseo YMCA, which is not far from our museum. And we had a wonderful celebration with the Commissioner, as well as partnership with Major League Baseball Players Association to kick off the anniversary. The official anniversary was February 13th. And we also had an art exhibit that we had here through the pandemic and through the summer once we were able to reopen. But we have big plans for other things coming up in relationship to events and educational programs. And unfortunately, the pandemic put all of those aside. However, Major League Baseball is still going to mark the occasion this year. All teams were to wear a special patch emblematic of the anniversary. That was going to happen in late June, but now that has been moved to August 16th. And it's going to still be a great way to honor Negro League's history. We've been doing other things in the interim. We pivoted from the June event to a national event where folks were able to join by social media called Tipping Your Cap. And many great fans of the sport, as well as celebrities and notables, were able to do a symbolic tip of the cap in honor of the 100th anniversary. And that has included stars from other sports like basketball and football, as well as many of our current baseball stars and 4 of the former presidents of the United States.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. I mean, obviously time marches on, and it sounds like it's going to be quite a celebration, even though COVID-19 has impacted it. Studying up on the Negro Leagues, and I'm guilty of this, and I know I told you off air when we were setting up that I was under the assumption that the Negro Leagues were about 3 teams: New York, Kansas City, Pittsburgh, and Satchel Paige, whom when I grew up was making the talk show circuit, very engaging man. But that is the biggest misconception, or at least correct me if I'm wrong, is that this was not a second-rate league. These were thriving businesses, had their own fan base, and these were not a couple of stars like Satchel Paige or Josh Gibson, and then a bunch of also-ran ball players. I mean, this was a legitimate baseball league that had a huge fan base.
You're correct, and your assumptions are common among folks because all they've heard of were a handful of teams and a handful of cities with a handful of star players that get a lot of attention. But between 1920 and 1955, the museum recognizes about 30 different communities and over 70 different teams, not all existing at one time, but they were organized between 6 and 8 different leagues, kind of ebbing and flowing with the times, with the economic times of the country. But again, in a lot of the urban centers that we mentioned Kansas City and Detroit, but Chicago, Atlanta, New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., all these places had large urban centers, and baseball was all a part of that. And yes, these teams were of major league caliber. And not only that, they traveled across the country to play in their league-sanctioned games over those years. They also were able to travel to places like Southern California, into Mexico, into the Caribbean, as well as, and sometimes into Japan to play exhibition games. This was big business. These teams, some of them owned their own stadiums. Many of them rented stadiums from major league teams. I know that was the case in Detroit. They played at the old stadiums there, as well as in Hamtramck as well. They had agreements with teams like the Tigers to play those games there. So it was an economic engine for some folks in the community, as well as for Major League Baseball. They made money off of these black teams. Think about a team like the New York Yankees, for example. The New York Yankees not only, of course, had Yankee Stadium, which they rented to black baseball teams, sometimes 4-team doubleheaders on Sundays to black teams in New York. They owned the Newark Eagles minor league team, of which the Newark Bears minor league team and the stadium, and the Newark Eagles, which was the black team, rented that stadium. They owned the Kansas City Blues, which was the white minor league team here in Kansas City, and they rented their stadium to the Kansas City Monarchs. So the Yankees are making money off Yankee Stadium. They're making money in Newark. They're making money in Kansas City. And so there's not a real urgency to integrate when you're making money off of segregation in that way. But ultimately, their talent and their fortitude and their success really push Major League Baseball to think seriously about integrating.
Well, what's interesting about that, and I want to get into the Detroit Stars here a little bit in their history, but I was going to ask you this anyway, but Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier. I'm not going to say it's bittersweet because it's progress and it should have been done, long before that. Yet that was kind of the beginning of the end for the Negro Leagues because everybody then obviously wanted to play Major League Baseball if you were good enough.
If you were good enough. Yet Major League Baseball was not in a big hurry to integrate, at least initially. And that had a lot to do both with business, but also with just the really skewed social mores we had at the time when it comes to talking about integration. Robinson does play here in Kansas City in 1945 with the Monarchs, where he is discovered, if you will, to be an infielder. And he was a great athlete. Baseball may have been his worst sport. He was really good at basketball. He was great at football. He was great at a lot of different things, track and field especially. And so he fell into baseball, so to speak, although he had played in college and got an opportunity to play professionally. And once he signed with the Brooklyn Dodgers and with the minor league year in 46 and then in 47 making his debut, there were 4 other players in that year in 47, all former Negro Leaguers who were able to help integrate baseball. But it takes between 1947 and those 5 total players to 1959 before every major team has a black or Afro-Latino star on their rosters. So a 12-year period, Robinson only plays 10 of those years. Integration, in essence, is still a relatively slow process. But think about the players that come through in that time. After Robinson, there's Larry Doby, Hall of Famer, Henry Aaron, Hall of Famer, Satchel Paige, Hall of Famer. Um, and ultimately the great Latin players as well, players like Manny Minoso, and eventually you get to Roberto Clemente and many other players. And it was a slow process. It was for some reason a painstaking process, because for some communities it was just hard for them to accept having African American players to play baseball. But baseball, in many respects, was a great equalizer. Everyone enjoyed baseball. Black fans enjoyed rooting for the Tigers, and they enjoyed rooting for the Red Sox and these other teams. But to be able to have a black team in your community was really something of pride. And to be able to have a black player on the major league team was something that was really exciting for black fans. And in essence, those black fans also went to watch Jackie Robinson and the other black players on the major league teams, which ultimately was the end of the Negro Leagues. Without the fan support over time, that is what really caused their demise.
My favorite players were like Willie Horton, Willie the Wonder, and Gates Brown. And I think back, if it were even like 10 years earlier, they wouldn't have been a Tiger, or it would have been much more difficult for him. And Willie's from Detroit.
We credit Ozzie Virgil as being the first black player with the Detroit Tigers. And Ozzie didn't play in the Negro Leagues, but he came up in that era between 47 and 59. But you're right, soon afterwards, Willie Horton and the other players came up and really helped solidify that Tigers team. They were certainly influenced by the rich history that Detroit had in black baseball. The Stars, which was the Detroit team, was among the earliest teams, even as an organization, predating the formation of the Negro National League, and having a good amount of success in that region, competing against teams from Chicago and other places, bringing great thrills of black baseball to the community. But your point about trying to imagine, especially some of those great teams of the 60s, without a player like Willie Horton or some of those other players being able to compete. Can you imagine them being successful without those players? The teams that would come later in the 80s in Detroit that had success. Can you imagine them without the great players that they had, like Whitaker and others? It's impossible to imagine that. Yet there was a time where that wasn't the case. And Detroit has a long, rich baseball history, which was only made better by the inclusion of the black and Latin players.
I really want to talk a little bit about the Detroit Stars, because I'm embarrassed to say this, but growing up, I never heard of the Detroit Stars. I had no idea that Detroit had a black baseball team. Not only that, when the Stars disbanded in 33, they were around from 1919 to 1933. In 1932, the East-West League, Detroit had another team called the Detroit Wolves for only a year that I was completely, utterly didn't know. But the Stars were a thriving team and very successful. And I do know their best player was, of course, Hall of Famer Turkey Stearns. So the Stars, in their own right, were a legitimate and very good baseball team when they played and represented the Motor City.
And the Detroit Stars are considered among the founding teams in Negro League baseball. Really, Detroit has a very important part of this history, really covering the upper Midwest, competing against teams in places like Chicago and Dayton and Milwaukee for a little while as well. The great Turkey Stearns, Norman Turkey Stearns, was one of the premier hitters in black baseball and is recognized as such by his contemporaries. Detroit baseball fans hopefully will become more aware of the Stars and the rich part that they play in African American baseball history, which of course contributes to the main stories of Major League Baseball history as well. So Detroit can boast a rich legacy.
Ray, to finally wrap it up, and this is probably a difficult question here, but the presence of the Negro Leagues, how do you think it's felt in Major League Baseball today? The legacy that this league has on the impact of MLB today?
That's a great question, and I think we're starting to see that resonance, especially this year, and not just because of the pandemic, but of course because of all the social unrest we've seen in the country. We have here at the museum experienced a great deal in resurgence and interest in the history, partly because of the anniversary, but magnified by the things that are happening. I mean, we're still dealing with issues that we dealt with 100 years ago and more recently 50 years ago with the civil rights movement. And folks are turning to us and understanding the sports history as a way of understanding African American history and how it has progressed. We're happy to play that role for the country. We're happy to play that role for baseball and baseball fans to get a perspective on what these men and women went through just to be able to play the game and the obstacles that they went through. I think folks who don't know the history are surprised to learn the history. And then, of course, they know a little bit about civil rights and things like that, but just putting it in perspective of something that's familiar to them, baseball and sports, is a great entree to talking about some really difficult subjects. And here you come to the museum, and you're right, this is a triumphant story. It is something that people could come in, feel good about, and take great lessons from. But not, and I think at times we could be guilty of over romanticizing that with sport. But at the same time, you come in and you'll see some uncomfortable things and learn about some uncomfortable stories in situations that happen. But those stories were real, and even though they may have seemed to have happened a long time ago, they're resonating again today. So we're happy to help be a way of on-ramping to these difficult topics that we're dealing with today. I think the players recognize that in baseball, even more so today. We have very few African-American players in the game right now, but their voices are being heard now, and their teammates are listening to what's happening from a social standpoint. And that helps make the connection both for players and fans. We're happy to, again, to serve that role and be a part of that. I've been very proud of the fact that many, especially African American players, but all baseball players, tend to come to visit when they can. In the last year, when their teams are in town, they come to learn about the history. The Baseball Players Association has made a very important point to reach out to us to make sure that players can connect to this history. And MLB itself has reached out as a partner to help support that. So we're here. When we're able to all get together more, we want folks to come down and see us at the museum. Detroit fans have been among the great fans that come to visit us here in Kansas City. And we are open now, and we hope that fans will be allowed back soon so that folks can come back to Kansas City and see the museum.
Yo, Ray, thank you very, very much for joining us. I could go on and on, as I said, but I won't. But, I really enjoyed this conversation. We're going to have you on again. And you just take care of yourself. Stay safe, and we will talk very, very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, that will do it. That is Ray Doswell, the Vice President of Curatorial Services of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. And that has been the headliner, brought to you by Miller Lite, the original light beer with great taste and only 96 calories. It is available for delivery as well, and we know it is delicious. Daniella, back to you.
Thank you, Art and Ray. What a great interview. Very informative and very well spoken. Ray did a great job. I learned a lot through that. So I'm really excited to learn more about that history and see the events that take place this weekend leading up to the Tigers Negro League celebration. Right now, you guys, we're going to bring Carley Johnston back and get in to Let's Socialize, presented by AAA. Carley, why don't you take it away? We all know you have some good stuff for us today.
That's right, Danielle. Thanks. Okay, my first social question is going to Art. Dylan wants to know, how could Svechnikov fit into the lineup this upcoming season? I know you guys chatted about it a little earlier with Ken.
Well, I think
so Let's Socialize, presented by AAA. Carley, why don't you take it away? We all know you have some good stuff for us today.
Okay.
What's going on?
Yeah, okay, my first social question.
I'm hearing
Art. wants to know.
Okay,
are you guys hearing a lot? Are you hearing stuff in the background here? Like a delay system that's going through our ears?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now you can't hear it, right? Am I going insane or
Okay.
you?
Wait.
Okay.
No, Art, you're fine. Be quiet for a second, Art. Carly, do you have a window open on your computer that is playing the live show?
Are you
I
hearing?
don't.
Technical difficulties,
Okay.
you guys. It's okay.
Hey, it's live, right?
Are we good?
We'll do it live. I
We're
always wanted
good.
to say that.
All right.
I think we're good.
Okay, so Svechnikov. I think at worst he's going to be on the fourth line. I do think he has to clear waivers. I don't think that may or may not happen. It depends on if his brother Andre really wants him on the Carolina team or not, and I'm just speculating there. I think that he is going to make the team because of his injury history. He's had kind of a checkered Red Wing career. There have been moments where he has worn the red and white and looks like he knows what that he's a viable and a very good hockey player. However, as Kenny Cal alluded to earlier, this is make or break for him. He has to, without question, make the team first. And there's going to be a lot of competition to make the Red Wings. We've got a draft coming up here where the Red Wings are going to add 10 more players. Not that all 10 of them would make the Red Wings, but I'm just saying there's a lot of competition. There's jobs to be had. And so Svechnikov is going to have to earn a job. If he earns a job, I think that he may start off on the fourth line, perhaps with, I don't know who the fourth line center would be at this point. Let's say Luke Glendening, for lack of a better term, and Svechnikov and maybe Giovanni Smith. And maybe work his way up. So, try to get some power play time too. If he starts scoring goals, if he starts showing an offensive flair, then I think for sure that he'll just keep rising up the ranks. We're not talking about a player that didn't have a nice pedigree when the Red Wings drafted him, I believe, 19th overall in the first round. So this is a guy that can really contribute if he can stay healthy. If he can stay healthy, and let's face it, you had a whole year wiped out of your career here. I mean, and he came back last year and showed some flashes, showed some brilliance, and I think now getting that year out of his belt last year, coming back and his knee being okay, and he played and he had some moments where he was really good, some moments where he wasn't so good, but I think mentally he probably feels, okay, I'm good. I mean, physically, I'm good. Because in the back of your mind, when you suffer a catastrophic injury, I don't care who you are, you always have a little bit of doubt, right? Am I ever going to be 100%? If it's ever going to come around again? If I skate, if I hit a rut, boom, is my career over? Well, all that should be now at ease. He should not be thinking that way. So he's got to concentrate on hockey. He's really close and tight with his brother, who is tearing it up for the Hurricanes right now, as we know. So I think he's probably has a great support system. I know he's really tight with his mother, really good family. So I think that he knows what he needs to do. I think he's in a good place. Fourth line at the very worst. Maybe if he makes the team, he works himself up to the third line, gets some power play time. If he starts scoring goals, then he could conceivably, if he's the player that we all hope he is, he could be a second line forward on the Red Wings. He's big too.
Okay.
I mean, he's not a small guy. Yeah. You've seen him. So I mean, I guess high ceiling second line, low ceiling fourth line.
Okay, I like it. He's a great guy too, amazing personality. So we'd love to have him on the team. I know he'd bring some jokes to the locker room. He's pretty funny. Okay, second question now to Daniella. A lot of fans on the Tigers Facebook are asking, do you think that we'll go after a starting pitcher before the end of the season? Wow, it's the best I've looked all stream.
I actually did see some of these comments. I'm sorry, Carly's making me laugh. All right, Carly's got jokes today. All right, so back to the question. Yes, I saw some of these comments in the Facebook feed here, and my advice would be, guys, take a step back and think about this for a second. The Tigers are still in a rebuild. Yes, they're on the upside of the rebuild, and the start of the season has been really fun to watch, but nonetheless, they're still in a rebuild, and they have some great pitching prospects in their prospects pool, including Casey Mize, Matt Manning, and Tarek Skubal, who have all cracked the top 50 in MLB Pipeline's latest top prospects list. Tarek Skubal is right at 50. He moved up from 51 from the last time they rated the prospect. So think about that. If you were going to trade for a veteran starting pitcher, you would probably have to give up one of these guys. You would have to trade them. And I don't think any of them are worth trading right now. I don't think getting a veteran pitcher for 30 or 40 games, whatever it may be for this shortened baseball season, is worth giving up some of our top prospects. And these guys are going to be good. We just have to be patient. It's something that we preach in every sport. The Red Wings right now, too, are going through a rebuild. Steve Yzerman preaches patience. Alavila needs you guys to be patient because he has done a really good job of gathering these prospects. So, yeah, would a veteran pitcher be nice to get us through this short season and hopefully make the playoffs? Of course, but none of those guys are worth giving up, and I think that they're going to stick with the guys that they do have on their roster. And last note, I really do think Matt Boyd is going to find his way. He's going to turn this thing around. I think they're going to be good in the pitching department, and I think they're going to keep what they have.
I couldn't agree with you more, Danielle. That was the perfect answer. So moving on, question number 3. Art, I got to remind you, we only have about 12 minutes left before I ask you this question. But the last question of Let's Socialize. Art, what did you think of the NHL playoff games last night?
I really enjoyed all of the playoff games last night. There were 5 of them. The thing that I really am impressed with is that I think that Philadelphia finally, after years of not getting the goaltending situation right, having Carter Hart in net, playing against his idol, Carey Price, who made a brilliant save last night, maybe one of the best saves you're ever going to see ever. I think that the Flyers are really a team to watch out for, and I really think that they've got just enough scoring. And Carter Hart just seems to be the type of guy that just does not get flustered, and he's only, I think, all of 22 years old in playing perhaps the most pressurized position in all of professional sports, NHL goaltender. Another team that I really, really liked and I really thought high hopes for, and I'm kind of scratching my head a little bit too, is the St. Louis Blues have not won a game yet. They were defeated by the upstart Vancouver Canucks, and I really think that it's really interesting that St. Louis needs to find their mojo. I mean, everyone looked at those play-in rounds and, okay, they were 0-3. They hadn't won. But yesterday, I think you saw with the Bruins, the way the Bruins were able to pick it up and beat Carolina in overtime, which was really an also good game, is that they were able to, and the Bruins pretty much said, yeah, these 3 games, we don't care. Even though we're the President's Trophy winner, we're still going to get that bonus check that the President's Trophy winner gets. So, yeah, we're seeded 4th. I don't care. We don't care. We're going to be fine. And they kind of proved it. Carolina gave them a really good game. That was a really good game to watch. But, and Boston's top line, the perfection line came through for them and won that game yesterday. But my point being is that St. Louis not winning a game yet and playing Vancouver, they've got to get it together a little bit here. And Bennington gave up some really bad goals as well. So, I guess that's my that's kind of what I thought yesterday. And how about today? Just concluded is that Columbus came back and beat Tampa Bay 3-1. So after that marathon 5.5 period game that they ended up playing, or like 2.5 games, whatever, many 5 overtime periods that it went into. Columbus comes back today and wins, which is really impressive considering you would think that would be a game that maybe they were just crushed. They were just crushed. No one wants to lose a marathon game in any sport. So that's what I think. But I also have a question for you two young ladies very, very quickly, because I know we're running out of time. During the course of this show, my appearance has changed. I know people get caught up in my good looks, and I know that, and of course my hair, which is unruly. But do you know what has changed almost from segment to segment. Something is different about me. Do you know? Daniella does know.
Yeah, you're glad.
That's
I noticed that
exactly
when you were
right.
talking.
I'm not.
I didn't know if you wanted me
Yeah,
to or not.
I was wondering if you noticed because I only wear reading glasses, so and I have a zillion of them because I constantly misplace them. And these are the ones that I like. I like these the best. But then I thought so I thought, why not during the show? If I just interchange in between, because I can see when we cut away and I'm not on screen. If I put on a different pair of glasses, if you would ever notice. So guess what? Give yourself some. Bet you didn't know wasn't a two truths and a lie, but great job. I'm very, very impressed by you two. Thank you.
Do I get a point for that one? You never give me any credit, so that was actually really
right. I'm gonna. Pardon me, Carly.
I said, can she pat herself on her back?
Yeah, really. You have to do a Carly. There we go.
There you go. You look good doing it, Daniella.
Yeah, really. Oh, yeah. Good. Very, 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 very good. I think I'm going to stick with these glasses too. I like them better.
I'm not gonna lie. I kind of missed your first part of your answer to the hockey question about the playoffs. Did you talk about your Vegas Golden Knights?
No, they're playing right now though. That's why we have to get out on time because
what you thought about that.
Trying to keep us on time.
Yeah, really.
Wow.
Of all people. All right, I'm counting down. According to my clock, we're under the 7-minute mark. I will say this. I think that Vegas is a special team, and I'm going to tell you why. When he was with Ottawa, I became a really big fan of Mark Stone. When we're at these games and we're watching, you can watch the whole game. You can see different players, and you can keep your eye on players and what they do when the puck isn't in their end or when they're chasing the puck around. I'll tell you my all-time favorite player, and we haven't mentioned him today, so I will, to watch his play without the puck was Steve Yzerman. Steve did a lot of things. Some of them legal, some of them not so legal when he didn't have the puck. And, yes, exactly. Here we go. Steve Yzerman. Enjoy your night, everybody.
I said today.
It's after 5, so we can actually play the game now.
Yeah, exactly, right. And it's always after 5 somewhere, right? And with that said, though, Mark Stone is a very gifted and big-time and money player. And you put him on that Vegas team, which seems to have a knack. Brendan Smith's brother, Riley Smith, Robin Leonard in net now, or Marc-Andre Fleury. There's just something about the Vegas Golden Knights, and it's been this way since they've been in the league, whether it was Gerard Gallant or now my buddy Pete DeBoer as their coach. They just have a knack of not being out of any game and really coming back and winning hockey games. So I like their combination. And I think when Mark Stone was traded by Ottawa to Vegas, and then he signed that long-term deal, I think Mark Stone might be the one player that's really going to put Vegas over the top. Very, very impressed with him. And I was always impressed when he was with the Senators. He was always kind of a Red Wing killer. He's a really, really good player, a bit underrated. So that's why I really do like the Vegas Golden Knights. I just really, really, really like them. Not as much as the Red Wings, though. Not as much as the Red Wings. I still like the Red Wings. Red Wings are still my favorite team by far. And I think they got a great general manager. Maybe you've heard of him, Steve Yzerman. He's the general manager. I think he's going to do really good things in Detroit. I understand he was a good hockey player at one time. I am not familiar with that part of his career.
Really?
No.
All right.
I'm messing with you, Steve. I know we're running out of time. I know you're waiting. I know you're waiting to get on again.
I'm pulling the game around time.
All right. Have a piece of broccoli, Carly. Great job today.
He was all right.
Well, it looks like Carly's is getting glitched. Oh, mine just glitched too.
Yeah.
And Art really wants to go watch the hockey game. I guess we'll wrap things up for today. That does it. Socialize, you guys.
Are we already done?
to AAA. AAA says thank you with free roadside assistance for first responders and healthcare workers fighting to defeat COVID-19. You protect us by going to work every day. Let AAA protect you on the way there and back. And that's it, you guys. We have come to the end of today's edition of The Word on Woodward presented by Rehmann. Make sure you guys are tuning into the Tigers game tomorrow as they kick off their series with the Cleveland Indians. You can catch that game on Fox Sports Detroit with pregame coverage starting at 6 p.m. Or you can tune into 97.1 The Ticket and listen to Dan Dickerson on the call. Also, if you guys missed anything in today's show, make sure you check out the Word on Woodward YouTube page, or we also have a podcast now too, and you can get that on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. So make sure you check those out. You can go through that Word on Woodward. Wow, I can't even say the name of the show to end it out. That Word on Woodward YouTube page and watch every interview that we've ever done. So it's really cool. Check that out, you guys. And of course, join us next Tuesday starting at 4 p.m. on Detroit Red Wings and DetroitTigers.com. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.